Some football players seem destined for a particular team or achievement. There's surely no better example of this than Roy Aitken captaining Celtic to a centenary double in 1988. Aitken had made his Celtic debut on the 10th of September 1975. He came on as a substitute in a 2-0 victory for Celtic over Stenhousemuir in the League Cup, and it was to be the start of a renowned career. The Bear, as he became known, was born in 1958 in Irvine. As a pupil at St Andrew's Academy in Saltcoats, he was known as a young player of great potential, and so was attracted to Celtic when still a teenager. This young age became part of an amusing story in his early footballing career. In 1976, Celtic had to go behind the Iron Curtain to play in East Germany. National rules meant that 17-year-old Aitken was too young to travel alone, so Celtic had to adopt him. Sadly for Aitken and the Celts, they still exited the Cup Winners' Cup, losing 2-1 on aggregate. By the time he turned 18, he very much had become his own man and was a crucial part of the Celtic side. As well as being a regular player in both defence and midfield, he even captained the side on occasion, and at 19, the youngest ever Celt to do so. In his early Celtic days, perhaps Aitken's greatest moment came after the departure of Jock Stein, with Celtic's big man being replaced as boss by Billy McNeill. In his first season, the Celts won a memorable title. On the last day of the season, 10-man Celtic came from behind to beat Rangers and win the championship. Aitken played an essential role in this game, his 66th-minute goal equalising for the Boys and setting them on the road to glory. During the remainder of Billy McNeill's first Celtic spell, Aitken helped Celtic win more silverware. With him as an important part of the squad, the Celts also won the 1981 and 82 titles, as well as the 1980 Scottish Cup and 1982 League Cup. It wasn't simply in Celtic's green that Aitken was an important figure. He also regularly pulled on the dark blue of Scotland. He made his debut in September 1979 as the Scots drew at home against Peru. In total, Aitken made 57 appearances for his country, including captaining them, before his last match in 1991. In 1983, when Billy McNeill first departed Celtic's managerial position, Davy Hay replaced him. Although Hay had not played with Aitken, Celtic's smiling assassin had departed Celtic for Chelsea the year before Roy's debut, he was well aware of how important a player he was. However, at first David Hay did not enjoy trophy success at Celtic. Two particular games stood out in this early reign, both of which involved Roy Aitken. Firstly, Celtic lost to Aberdeen in the 1984 Scottish Cup final. Aitken and the Celts both had reasons to feel aggrieved. Roy was sent off in the 39th minute, with many fans blaming the influence of Aberdeen's Gordon Strachan, and also a seemingly offside goal for the Dons was allowed to stand. Later in 1984, Celtic faced further problems. Despite losing this cup final, Celtic still entered the Cup Winners' Cup as Aberdeen also won the league. The Boys started well, and in fact they looked like one of the favourites for the tournament, until they met Rapid Vienna of Austria. In October 1984, Celtic lost 3-1 in Vienna, but turned this round with an impressive 3-0 home win to seemingly go through. However, a Rapid player falsely claimed to have been hit by a missile from the crowd. As such, a replay took place at Old Trafford, and the Celts exited. Roy and Celtic did at least celebrate at the end of the 84-85 season. Playing in the 100 Scottish Cup final, Celtic went behind versus Dundee United before two late goals from Davy Provan and Frank McGarvey gave them victory. Playing in midfield, Aitken was named as man of the match. In the following season, it was yet another dramatic title win for the Boys. On the final day, Celtic went to Paisley needing a big win. They also had to hope that Hearts would fail to take a point at Dens Park. The Boys did their job, winning 5-0, and then two late goals from Dundee substitute and Celtic fan Albert Kidd ensured there were green and white ribbons on the trophy. However, the following season, there was no trophies for the Celts, and it also ended David Hay's time in charge. He was replaced by a man under whom Aitken had previously flourished, Billy McNeill. This had an immediate impact on Aitken. Danny McGrain retired, so Roy was now made the official captain, and would do so in the season that Celtic celebrated their centenary. At the start of the campaign, Rangers were expected to dominate, thanks to their newly found riches and top English players, who had been recruited due to a lack of European football for English teams. The Celts very much proved these predictions wrong. Under Aitken's on-field leadership, Celtic stormed to the top of the table, eventually winning the league by 10 points. And despite expectations of Rangers' success, Hearts finished second. In front of a cheering crowd in May 1988, Aitken was handed the league trophy by Billy McNeill, but the boys were very much not finished. The final game of the season took Celtic to Hampden Park. In a sun-soaked National Stadium, Celtic again faced Dundee United, and just like in 1985, the boys fell behind. Once more, it took 2 late goals, this time from Frank McAvenny, to give Celtic the trophy. Aitken was handed this by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and the club celebrated a glorious season 100 years after first playing. The following season was less successful as the impact of Rangers' finances began to be evident. The Ibrox side won the league and League Cup and headed to Hampden for the Scottish Cup final, hoping to seal another treble. In front of them stood Aitken and his green and white teammates. In another hot day, Celtic fought and matched their more expensive opponents, and then came Aitken's big role. He knocked the ball out of play for what should have been a Rangers throw-in. Instead, Roy quickly took the throw and the Celts went up the park. A mistake from Gary Stevens meant the ball fell to Joe Miller, and he knocked home for the game's only goal. Once again, it was Aitken who led his men up the Hampden steps to celebrate another Scottish Cup win for the Celts. But as much as the club were cheered by this victory, it turned out to be Roy Aitken's last time lifting a trophy as a Celtic player. The club were now in a downward spiral that wouldn't change until Fergus McCann's 1994 takeover, and Aitken suffered as much as anyone else. He submitted a transfer request, and this was granted. So in early 1990, it saw him move south to Newcastle United for £500,000, where he became captain. However, by 1991 he had returned to Scotland, playing for St Mirren and then Aberdeen before his retiral. His move to Aberdeen had also helped him gain managerial experience, with him acting as both player and assistant boss. After Willie Miller was sacked in 1995, Aitken became the official manager, and ensured a great start by keeping them in the league despite fears of relegation. However, his big Aberdeen success was when they won the 1995 League Cup. By 1997, the Dons were struggling and Aitken was out of job. He then went into coaching and has worked at various clubs such as Leeds United, Aston Villa and Birmingham City. He was even acting manager at Villa Park for a short spell in 2006, as well as having a spell coaching the Scotland national team. Over the years, Celtic have never been short of on-field leaders, yet even among so many renowned figures, Roy Aitken's name stands out as a prime example of this. Despite always playing as a defender or defensive midfielder, Aitken could be relied upon to get on the score sheet. He is joint 8th in the Celts' all-time records for scoring in consecutive seasons, which he managed to do for 14 years. Throughout the late 1970s and 80s, when Celtic won trophies, the Bear was a major part of the team's efforts. He helped the Celts win multiple cups, including the League Cup and Scottish Cup. However, the defining image of Aitken in Celtic history will always be in the centenary season, as he led the Hoops to a famous League and Cup double. If you want to learn more about Celtic history, follow Hail Hail History on Twitter, X and Blue Sky. You can also participate in free Celtic walking tours. Visit celticwalkingtours.wordpress.com for more information.